Welcome, everybody. I'm Greg Stanley. I'm here with Wes Warren. And today we're going to talk about a topic that's very timely. It appears that it is caused by the COVID, but there's more to it. We're going to be talking about why nearly every office we work with is short of staff. They're short of hygienists. It's a problem everywhere. And it's strange because it's come about right at the time it seems that patients, new patients and regular patients are surging into the offices. In other words, we're overrun with patients and we're short of staff. It's a reverse of the problem we normally deal with. Wes, what are you seeing out there?
I agree totally. But Greg, I'd ask you, before COVID started, were you starting to see these problems, or is it really just a COVID issue, or were we ramping up as a nation before then in terms of demand of dentistry?
Good question. Dentistry is always seems to be seeing its demand shift to people that will take their insurance, or people that get a lot of Google reviews, et cetera. What we're really up against now, in some ways, it really isn't COVID. It's the money that's been given out because of COVID. In other words, staff now have money to go home and rethink their life. They have unemployment benefits they didn't have before. COVID money. I walked in a mall a few weeks ago, walked past the Vuitton store, and there was a line like the first time Star Wars played for people to get in and buy Vuitton stuff. And don't ask me why, but it just was the day that the COVID checks came out. In other words, money coming down from the government seems to be changing a lot of people's outlook. And what we're seeing in dentistry isn't just staff staying home to get free money, or maybe in some cases even more money.
Yes.
They're changing their entire future. They're not coming back, not only to our office, they're not coming back to dentistry, some of them. And it's really unexpected. You've heard the law of unexpected consequences or unintended consequences. I think we're in the middle of a big one right now. Because like I said, if people wanted to stay out of dentistry for 3 or 6 months, I get that. But to have them leave the profession, I think it's time we talk about this.
I would also agree with what you were saying earlier, that patients are feeling the same way, richer. They've got more money than they normally had, more choices to take care of the dentistry. And I'm seeing it. I know a lot of offices are seeing just this demand to come to the practice to actually get their treatment done. And so it's this opportunity, but then we don't have the team to deliver it. That is probably the most common scenario. And I know a lot of you listening, that is the problem. You got the demand, but now the team is not there.
Yeah, some staff that we kind of thought of them at one time kind of as clock punching, they're just kind of, they're there. They kind of do the job, maybe not engaged. Man, when they got their rent foregone and they got a check of unemployment and a COVID check and so forth, it made them they almost saw it as a sign that I need a new life. And so I want to talk about some of the things that allowed doctors to keep good staff. Some of our offices have kept really good staff.
Yes.
Some of them have kept really good staff, even though the employees in their offices could actually get more money by staying home.
Well, yeah, you just said it. You get unemployment, you forego your mortgage for a year and a half now it's coming up on. You're making more money staying home. And you're right. I would say some of our practices, if not the majority of, at least the ones we really coach, have really hung on to the vast majority of their team, and it's not by accident. There's reasons why it's happened.
That's what we're going to get into. And the next time this happens, the third variant or the fourth variant or whatever it is, maybe we'll be able to hang on to some people and go forward. And literally, capture this incredible influx of patients.
Okay, let's get into it. Craig, tell me just what you've learned as far as importance, maybe you could start there. But yeah, what have you learned in the practices you're dealing with and why why team members have stayed with the practice?
Well, you know, one thing I learned about patients is that they have to have dentistry. They don't have a choice. Staff don't have to have a dental job or a job as long as they have money.
Right.
So I learned that. And we're kind of looked into what it means that people would leave our office and go home and get a check. We're looking into that. And what we've learned is sometimes people are badly needed at home. Children, aged parents, things where they've been needed badly and their life was very stressful, trying to get away to get to work and trying to quickly get home and fill in these other roles that they have to play. One of the ones I really want to talk about too is a lot of them really dislike their work. And I don't mean the office, I don't mean the culture. They don't like their job. Their part in it is unpleasant. We touched on that before. We'll talk again about it. It's what I call a bad fit. They're not, their personality is not geared for what we're asking them to do. In other words, if you have the right person in the right job, they would like it enough that even for more unemployment, whatever, they'd be having to leave behind something that fills them emotionally. Now, and number 4 is one of the reasons they leave, and the one that I probably want to do the most about is what I call a toxic culture. And we're going to go through some points, and I suspect that most of you, especially those without associate doctors, have heard this and said, yeah, that's me. Yeah, but in the end, you got to go back and treat patients, and there's no time to really fix the problems. Whereas now we've got patients lined up and we don't have staff. And I want to talk about the things that we should have fixed and that really wear on staff. COVID, when we're up against free money, our culture gets brutally tested. In other words, we have some elements that are unpleasant. People would say things, I used to hear people say things like, you know, I come here for the doctor. I hate all these other people. I hate the staff. I come here for the doctor. Or they say just the opposite. I come here because of the people at the front or the people in the back. Or, in other words, they have a reason to live with a bad situation. Okay. And that's what I want to get into. So is it all about the money in keeping these people, especially when it's not another office bidding on them, it's our own government bidding on them?
Yeah.
All right, here's some things that wear people out faster than anything I've ever seen. I call it producer's rule. If you've ever been in the sales industry, and it's real hard to make sales, whether you're selling timeshares or condos or big boats or whatever you're selling, whoever can sell those can strut around the office and get away with saying anything they want to anyone else. Very annoying. It's not a team spirit. Producer's rule. I'll tell you where it's likely to take root, although it doesn't have to. A lot of times hygienists know, hey, you know, I brought in $14,000 this month, or what did you bring in? You didn't bring in nothing. I brought in money. So deal with my crap, you know? And so the producer's rule mentality, any thoughts?
I was just talking with a doctor today about really this whole producer's rule thing. And there's 3 areas that we see it in. And you're right, hygienists is a big one. Not only just producer's rule for them, but also relationship. If they're really good with patients and all the patients just love them, and they can just be horrible to everybody else, neglect everybody, treat everybody else terribly. But as long as they treat the patient great, we'll just kind of treat them like this salesperson that sells yachts, that is
It's
a
a point of
closer, if you will.
it's a point of validation. They know they are loved and appreciated by the people who count.
That's right. The other area, and I would say probably the biggest, is the assistant. The doctor's favorite assistant is, I would put, number one without exception. And if you're listening, it's probably happening in your office. I mean, it's so pervasive out there that I would say it's 70-80% of offices will have an assistant who is treated above the law, and it can create tension and drive people out. So yeah, I'll see it there. And then last, and not so much, would be a treatment coordinator, somebody that, and it could be your office manager at the front desk, but really what drives their value is they're good at collecting on larger cases, or just cases in general. They're good at treatment coordination. And because they're good at that, we kind of, oh, well, that's just Betty, we just have to deal with her attitude. And those three spots, that's where we see it.
I think a lot of doctors aren't even clear on what should be fixed and what shouldn't. Maybe they're thinking, well, I've had jobs before. I went to dental school and it wasn't all happiness. Some days I had to shovel gravel or whatever, Yeah. But in dentistry, it's very demanding. And we wear people out and they are valuable to us. By the way, you can get people to shovel gravel with less training than you can
at $9 an hour.
Yeah.
Right.
So on this producer's rule idea, especially after you've lost some good people, and you realize the value, you find, as a doctor, you find yourself catering to these people like no others. And the other people really feel forgotten. And, we have presentations about leadership. We've had seminars. We've had audio about leadership. But the whole message of leadership is make it a great place for everybody, as opposed for a great place for the people that kind of naturally fit in their job.
Spot on. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a problem. You create this environment, and as soon as there's a better check somewhere else, or even similar check, you're going to have an exodus. You're going to have turnover. You're going to have these problems, and we see it before COVID. So as soon as there's options for these people, they're gone.
Yeah. Little or no oversight. And this is where the doctor maybe even came to one of our meetings, heard our message about leadership, thought to themselves, I don't think I got anybody like that. I don't think I have a leader, or I don't think I could do that. I'm going to kind of do it or whatever. And so it ends up like a sandlot football game where there's basketball, elbows thrown and cheating and fouls and blood spilt and so forth. And some people, they might say, this game's a little too rough for me. And so we tend to see the highly assertive, highly dominant, manipulative, controlling people crush everybody else. And those people, I'll just let you know, they're going to do what they're going to do. They're going to do what they want to do. You can tell them what to do. And if there's something in it they like, maybe they'll do it. But they're real hard to work with. They tend to be nice to patients that they like, maybe a staff person that they can push around pretty well. But it kills morale. In an office like this, where there's no oversight, there really no reason for people to step outside themselves. Nobody's going around saying, hey, great job, thank you. If you just do a little this, it would make a difference for all of it. In other words, they're not being developed. We say in management and leadership, the secret is to believe in people and to get rid of the people you don't believe in. Well, we're not communicating that in this environment.
How would you identify, because a lot of people, it's very hard to see your own shortcomings. Obviously, the whole mirror thing and seeing yourself for the first time. how would you think that people listening to this, would they identify that that's me? Or would they kind of believe they're a pretty good leader and no, there's oversight? Or
Yes.
are they?
No, you and I have been in office, so many offices where we had people say to us, oh, we told the doctor, we told him about her. We let him know. We all got together and let him know. But because she was the only one that could collect money or whatever, he lets it go on. So our lives are miserable. Her life's pretty good. And COVID, free money, I'm out of here.
I would agree. I would say that the majority of the people wouldn't even know that this is going on.
Right. It's not because it hasn't been addressed. It's because if we listen, we have to do the unthinkable. We
Right.
have to put at risk people who really bring in the money.
Exactly. Yep.
And when there's little or no oversight, it's not a case when there's no oversight. It's not a case of producer's rule. In producer's rule, we are clapping for a couple of people, usually. It's just we're back with patients ignoring everything else that goes on. And one of the things that goes on, or some of the things, are people don't follow the systems, the scripts. Some are lazy. They immediately pull their phones out when the doctor goes back with the patient. In other words, whether you realize it or not, this also kills morale. They're not proud to be part of a team where everyone in sight minimizes their job. I'm going to do the least I have to do because I don't have to do anymore. In fact, I know innately to complain to the doctor that I want more money, less work, and more time off. And so even though they might get that, they're not proud of themselves.
Right.
They're not happy about it. So we're talking about some of the things that drive people out of the office when they have a choice, when they have an alternative, a paid alternative. They're out of here. I've been in offices. I was in an office in the West where the doctor was incredibly abusive to staff. She was so direct and rude. I mean, it shocked me. I literally was shocked. I thought I'd heard and seen it all. And when I saw what she was paying people, I realized the massive premium she had in their paychecks had come from her inability to control her own rudeness. Would you say that was toxic? Yeah. And she was paying. Now, some people are thinking, as we're bringing up this whole topic, that now that COVID has drained my office of certain people, if I had been attentive, could I have lured them to stay with more money? Yeah, it might have been. And it might have been more than you really want. And what's sad is then you'd have to pay more to the people that would have stayed anyway. So we got to get ready for the next round is what we got to do. And this is a topic I covered in an earlier recording called breacher syndrome. In the special forces, and I was telling on the recording that there's 5 people running for Congress now that are former special forces soldiers. Don't ask me what that's about, but most of them have a book and really about having an iron will and all that. So one of the story that tells about the breacher, the person that puts the plastic explosive on the hinges of the door they're going to blow open to go in and free the hostages in a room full of terrorists. And that breacher, the person who does that, ends up with mild brain damage. In other words, it's not an ideal job, but they're good at explosives. So boom, they send them in. And we found that in dentistry, there's a few jobs that almost don't carry the fulfillment, some cases, even the money of a regular dental job. Let me give you an example. A kid that I knew, and he wanted to work at Costco. Mm-hmm. That's a hard job to get, believe it or not. It's like working at a utility or something. You got to do a good job. It pays good. There's bonus, benefits. So he wanted to get on at Costco. And I don't know if somebody told him or he figured this out himself, but he got a job as what he called the food lady. And it's just a name. It's the lady that hands out the chicken nuggets on a toothpick to people as they walk by, and or crackers with some cream cheese on it. I don't know, the food lady. And he thought he would get into Costco, and they're really a separate group. They don't mix. They're not part of Costco's team. They're the food lady, and they don't get respect. They don't get money, much money. You see what I'm getting at?
And they're not on the team. They're not part of, or at least they're not thought of as part of. I didn't
No,
know
you
that.
see the Costco people back in the break room giving each other the handshake and the hug and everything. These people are nothing to them. And maybe they'll get in, you know. So the food lady is a job we kind of have in dentistry. For example, she's in a dental office. Okay, I've got the scrubs on, or I'm here. What do you want me to do? Well, let's start by having you call this list of people that are incredibly angry at us and see if you can get them to come back in and pay us and accept a lot of treatment. You're a food lady. You're inside the door, but you're not inside the team. I'm saying that only because I'm describing the impact this seems to have. A lot of people don't make them feel that way, a lot of staff, but that's how they end up. They end up feeling like, gee, man, I look around, these other staff are pretty happy with their job. Is it just me? Every time I pick up the phone, somebody jumps through the phone and tries to eat me alive. I can't take it anymore. So they end up with breacher syndrome or food lady syndrome. And so if you do this, expect this to be the first person over the side when big checks are handed out by the government to not come to work.
I'll tell you another one. Is an unutilized assistant who is basically a sterilization tech, and then just kind of cleans up the rooms and turns them over. You know, they've got their, let's say it depends on the state, but let's say they're certified or they've been in dentistry long enough they can assist, but you don't really bring them in. They're not going to last. As soon as they figure that they've worked long enough to find another job and their resume looks decent, they're not going to last.
Yeah, if they can pass themselves off as an assistant somewhere.
Yeah, definitely.
By the way, the patient spit right there. It's on the floor. Get it up or we'll slip on it, you know. It's not the job of their dreams, you know. So that's breacher syndrome. Count on those to be the first people out. Some of you hearing this go, dang, Greg, I just realized that's who quit. You know, I've seen people that I thought would have lasted longer than they did at this. They wanted into dentistry, but man, they thought, if this is what I get, I'm not going to stay.
I want to just comment on that producer's rule. Sometimes we get dominant personalities, and it's just like a clash of the titans.
Yeah.
And who's ever more dominant stays, and the one that, you know, just finally says enough, I'm just not going to fight with her anymore, they're out. You know, we'll see that as the person that finally leaves. It's kind of like producer's rule, but it's really just who's more dominant.
Yeah, it's unpleasant. And you know, I would put that one under supervised. In other words, like if you're going to have titans clashing, you might want to, you know, put them in trunks and gloves and have them go to their corner, put a mouthpiece in, let them start slugging.
I would say you're right. That's true. Yeah.
Under supervised, those people left to themselves probably are destructive. Okay, next, leaders that do instead of lead. In other words, they're really good at their job, that maybe they're into one of these big important jobs like treatment coordinator, where they're bringing in the big bucks for the practice. I was a party to a practice that the average case was 21,000, and the person that brought that was able to make that possible was the financial coordinator. She was amazing. And so she was incredibly valuable, but to make her a leader, it really didn't work out. She was a doer. So we tend to take the best people and let them lead, because first of all, they know the job. Mm-hmm. So they should be able to train, but though they might be able to train, that's where it stops. They aren't able to inspire people to rise up, be more, engage, and become a team. So they're doers instead of leaders. And I might add, there's nothing wrong with this in the early stages. I would say it's 3 to 6 months to see somebody at a minimum transfer out of doership into leadership. Even doctors, they tend to be slow handing off leadership. We'll talk about that more later.
Yeah, and how does this manifest? Is this something that they just find they're doing so much because they're quote unquote a leader, and so much gets piled on their plate that finally they just get burned out and want to quit? Is that kind of where?
Yeah. In fact, I've watched leaders sit at their desk and everybody comes in and says, what about this? What about this? What about that? And they say, put it on my desk, put it on my desk, put it in that pile right there, put it right there. And pretty soon that pile is high. It never gets addressed. And when you jump on them, they say, I'll deal with it. Leave me alone. I'll deal with it. Kind of the thing they're saying is nobody else can do this but me. I'll get around to it when I get around to it. And they're not leading. They should be naming a second in command, other leaders, get it done. Okay, the next one, employees that are hazed instead of nurtured. No trainer is assigned.
Okay, so this one we see in almost every practice. There is no real, the practice is moving at such a pace, there's no ability to train somebody. And when we lose somebody, we need to hire somebody. So or down a person. We need this person to come in and be the person we lost. Even if they're from dentistry, to learn your systems, how you guys operate, it takes 30 to 45 days. That's if they're from dentistry, super experienced. It's almost impossible. And what we see, it tends to be hazing, where almost the employees that are there relish the fact that this person is not going to work out, that this person is going to fail and look bad and make them look good.
They even use them as an opportunity to make themselves look good, look better with the doctor by how stupid this person. I've told them. And yet you might have had to be told 20 times what you can do well. And now you can do it. But we tell them once, and then we can get some points with the doctor for putting it on them.
This has to change in offices, with especially this environment, what we've got going on here. More people have to work out instead of less in terms of when we hire people. You need to get the team really rallying behind people in terms of training and acceptance, so that they are accepted and that we give them every opportunity to be successful.
You said it earlier. You said how busy some offices are. They're up and they're going incredibly fast. In fact, it's all the staff, current staff of long years of training and experience can do to keep up. And so if you're not careful, you take on this hazing mentality of, hey, not everybody makes it here. Well, we need more people to make it. One of the rules some doctors embrace after time, they're quick to get up in front of our masterminds and share this too. I like it. It's only hire nice people. In other words, people that are nice, they're in a situation where they could put a barb in somebody, but instead they're nice and gentle and help them through it. That's what I'm hoping we start doing going forward. We get people that are good and capable and nice.
Definitely some other things that we've learned through, like you said, masterminding and things, is assign a trainer. Make somebody accountable that this person is trained and up to speed, that's their job.
If she's out in her car crying, we want to talk to a trainer and find out what happened. Well, I don't know. I lost track of her 2 weeks ago. I haven't been able to. Well, that tells us right there who let the training end down. So good point.
And the other thing is we'll do with the trainer is give her a bonus for when this person's finally checked off and fully trained.
Right.
Meaning that there's some kind of financial incentive that this person makes it, so that they're motivated to, it's kind of like a going to a new school. When I was in high school, I had to switch schools. I was sophomore. I knew nobody. And if they would have paid to have a friend who was established at the school and that I could, and the person was paid to make sure that I figured everything out, I would have assimilated a lot quicker than I did. And that's essentially what we're doing. We're bribing a team member that to make sure that this person works out.
Yeah,
And it works. It works.
and when it's bad, we're just hoping that the person we've chosen wants the job bad enough to take all this abuse to get through it. Sometimes it is, sometimes they aren't.
But not in this environment when you can go find a job in 2 seconds. I mean,
talked about high school. I think people wish they had somebody to help them in high school. In college, if they don't find somebody, they just quit and they go into the workforce. So yeah, let's hope your office, and some of you are thinking, Greg, I got so many problems. How can I worry about the wear and tear my culture is having on my team when I have all these other problems? My suggestion, write them all down and start with number one.
Whatever's the biggest, whatever you think is the number one problem in your office.
Right. Let people know we're not gonna do this way anymore, and then set out to work on that.
We have a problem in dentistry of this bullying thing is the only word I could think of, to hazing or bullying, where we're able to hire people, we're able to bring them in, but they just, too many of them don't work out. And you might conclude that, oh, we're just a bunch of stupid people working around here. If your bar is that high to where nobody works out ever, and you've been hiring for the last 5 years and just virtually nobody works out, I would question the method is what I would do. Are we doing something wrong here in our intake process?
Bullying is a real popular word right now. I want you to know that I prefer your word, hazing, because the idea is in 2 or 3 months, this new person that we just hired, she'll be hazing the new people. I don't want to see, let's get that stopped,
Right.
All right. Next, doctors are unpredictable, kind 1 minute, and unexplainedly explosive and angry the next. In other words, if you thought of a curve and a line you had to stay within on that, they go way above and maybe way below. And when staff can't predict what today is going to bring with the doctor, I can tell you the new staff, they'll burn out quick. The older staff probably be waiting for COVID to come along to leave. But the doctor has an issue. In fact, we've had some offices, and I don't want to belay this, but some offices, the veteran staff can tell when the doctor hasn't taken their medication. And, the problem is really hormonal. It's really not just behavioral. The behavioral mistake is the same as getting drunk and getting behind the wheel and killing somebody. The mistake was getting drunk and getting behind the wheel. Killing somebody comes later. In the office, the person who needs medication and doesn't take it and goes in and out of nowhere is throwing stuff and making people feel super tiny. That's the same thing. They're killing staff's morale and their self-esteem because they looked up to this person, and now they're slamming doors. And I've had staff call me after I've been in an office and ask me if they still have a job. I say, why do you say that? Well, we had a meeting today and we brought something up he didn't want to hear. Out of nowhere, he just lost it. We didn't see it coming. Do we still have a job? And, I'll calm him down. Sure, you got a job. He's got to earn a living and all that. And when staff don't know they have a job and that's your way of disciplining them, you're probably on the track to self-destruction. You're going to be doing a lot of training and a lot of apologizing. Yeah. So don't let that happen. Now, some staff, what they tell me is, I'm just going to go ahead and include this, is the unthinkable. The doctor will push them like with a shoulder, or some even shove them with a tray full of instruments and knock them over and then act like they're sorry, but it made them feel really good to give that person payback or whatever. And I know that some doctors have staff that break equipment and lose it and whatever. No violence. That's not gonna work. Okay. So the idea that yelling at somebody or unexpectedly exploding is violence, that's not violence, but it's unacceptable. It's going to ruin our culture. Everybody starts at the top. Everybody's going to be nice. Okay. Next, staff are not acknowledged for above and beyond performance. Now, some doctors will say, well, the market out there is paying $20 an hour and I'm paying 21. Why should I have to walk around and be nice, be extra nice or acknowledge people? Well, it isn't just the money. Some of it for $1 less than everybody else is getting, if they got praised and appreciated, would still be there.
I mean, I totally agree. We have plenty of offices that aren't at the top of the pay scale, but the environment, and we can list down everything we're talking about here, is very good, very strong. They enjoy the people they work with, there's structure, there's leadership structure, everything is great. And they will work for less. I mean, they're not out switching jobs because there's a job posting for $2 more an hour.
All right, let's look at what you've really got in your favor here. Because like I said, we're competing with the government's money and all these strange new times. Staff look up to you. If you yell at them, it's as if you screamed. It's as if you socked them.
Yeah.
If you praise them, there is no equivalent. Not
Can
even
I?
spouse. Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, yeah, we have people that yell, but I'll tell you what, pouting and just that whole pouting thing, and unpredictable pouting and being upset, and being upset, it's just as bad.
Some of them will use the excuse that if I wasn't pouting, I'd be yelling. And
Yeah,
you're saying it's just as bad.
it's just as bad. So you got to try to be as even keel as possible. I would suggest that if you're upset about something, with the team or how the practice is going, deal with it with the leaders. If you're going to be upset with them. Take them privately and talk to them about what you're upset about, what you need changed. They can tend to handle it. But doing that to the entire team and kind of walking around with an attitude or pouting or that kind of thing, it's not good.
Let's take another situation, and that's where doctors praise people. They do praise them for doing well. The theory being, if I praise them, they'll shine. You have to be very careful with this. Number one, you can't use superlatives. You're the greatest there's ever been. I've been in dentistry 30 years. No one I've talked to has ever. Yeah, well, you might as well adopt them because they're going to behave as though they're your child. They're a relative now and you can't fire them. So be careful. Now, so praise them, like you said, in front of people. And try to make sure everybody gets acknowledged. Like when you can, if you single somebody out, try to make sure, like you said, if it's good, make sure others are watching, but don't miss people. If that's the whole point here.
Yeah.
Don't miss it when people do stuff. Let me give you an example. Some people have learned that when a patient sends an email or a text or comments to the doctor about a staff person by name, or describes them in a way you know who it is, bring it up at the staff meeting, in the huddle, and have everybody give them a hand. In other words, that's huge. They feel good. They feel accepted and appreciated. Like I said, that is worth a certain amount of money. I mean, so you're losing your chance. And the other thing is what just comes from you, not just in front of the staff, but to call them aside and say, I want you to know you're making progress. You're doing good at this, on this thing you're working on. Thank you. I know there's a lot more to do. See, that's getting away
Right.
from the superlative. I know there's a lot more to do, but we're so impressed by what you're doing so far. Thank you. So don't get carried away, but don't miss a chance to spend some of your currency as the doctor. Okay, next. Bonus is actually earned pay that's been withheld, meaning what you're paying out as bonus should have been paid in their paycheck anyway. That'll work for a little while, but staff have too many friends outside your office in dentistry or even in other jobs to realize, hey, this is not a bonus. This is what I should be being paid. Bonus has to be on top of the going rate. And if that means your bonus has to be shaved down some, okay, but pay the going rate as the going rate. Don't try to trick them. Here's how it tends to end up. Staff person's been here for 10 years. And she's making great money, but half of it's bonus. Somewhere along the way, we should have adjusted the marker and turned more of it into pay. And you're thinking, well, I'll hold down my cost of new people. Now, new people they don't even know what she's getting paid. They're comparing it with another office or something they saw on the internet. So don't try that trick.
Yeah, it doesn't work. Yeah, you won't get away with it.
Okay, next, this is a killer. It relates to a topic we address from time to time. It is entrenched workers do not get addressed. In other words, they've been here 20 years or 25 years, and they're smart enough to know that when the doctor is in the room or the doctor's checking, sticking their head around the door to look busy and, but the truth is they're kind of planning their daughter's wedding and they're on the cell phone, they're in the bathroom on the cell phone or whatever. And everybody seems to know it, but the doctor, maybe even the doctor knows it because a staff person has brought it up, but nothing gets done. Well, she's been here 25 years. They're almost as if to say, can I address somebody who's been here 25 years? Can I do it successfully without getting sued or shot at or something? You've got to, because if you expect the other 20 staff in your office to rise up and impress you, you can't have entrenchment. There's nobody that has been here long enough that they get a paycheck and don't have to work.
Right.
I saw a guy, I read about a guy at the State Department. He was some clock punching office worker. He would disappear for a month at a time. And he implied to enough people that he worked for the CIA that nobody said anything. He went almost 30 years without doing any work, got his pay grade raises and all of this. That's entrenchment to the government level. But we see it in our offices. There's this person that there came a time when the doctor faced her and said, okay, what do I say to her? What do I say? She's been here 30 years. Well, her being here 30 years doesn't make her 30 times more valuable than somebody who just started here.
Right.
In normal jobs, we have pay grades. There's a class 1, class 2, class 3, and 3 is where you cap out. That's the most you're going to get. Well, in dentistry, there's a maximum you can pay as far as a job goes. For a regular job, as an assistant or whatever, we don't pay any assistants $100 an hour because we have to have other assistants. In other words, we can't give it all to one when we need 4. So watch out with entrenched workers. They tend to have an energy output that they quietly refuse not to modify. In other words, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. And so we need a leader to work with them and say, hey, no, we got to get this done. We got to get this done. You got to do it by this time. And after a time, the outcome, you need to understand, at the very least, when you replace her, she knows why. As opposed to, boy, I didn't see this coming. If you would have told me this, why, I would have stepped up to the plate. So A lot of times these people have been through ups and downs in the practice. Maybe the doctor went through a divorce, a disability, some problem, and she stuck with him through that. And so we're kind of rewarding her. We are not the government, though. We cannot reward people with lifetime jobs without destroying the team we're looking to build, ultimately to create what we would call a team that would support an associate doctor.
What's the next thing that you see?
Probably, to me, one of the worst is the doctor has decided all this long ago, has decided I'm going to tolerate this. I got some mediocre people, I got one or two good people, and doesn't really think about that it's their responsibility or it's in their hands to upgrade and inspire those mediocre people, if you see what I'm getting at.
Mhm.
Once they allow one or two people to wear the crown of glory, the rest are like chopped liver. These are people that just show up. They are what they are. And we don't look at them with it as, we don't see them with potential.
They're pawns.
Right. My suggestion is these are people that need to be looked at differently, because ultimately you can't have one or two inspiring people and 15 of these pawns and make a practice that's great, especially if there's an associate, a certain
Right.
amount of greatness has to come up from the staff. My suggestion is taking that responsibility to learn how to inspire people, how and when to believe in them, and when to cut them. And there's a lot's been said about this. We'll be talking about it more as time goes on. Yeah, a lot of times you and I have gone into practices and we say, okay, doctor, tell us about the leadership potential. And he says, there isn't any.
Yeah.
They're all losers, or they're all bad, or whatever. And you and I haven't met them yet, but we're thinking, can they really be like that? But this doctor sees them that way. And when we see them, we see people that are farther along the development path than a lot of people that became great leaders.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we kind of see them different. I think too, sometimes the doctor forgets or doesn't know that it's on them to inspire.
Yeah, leaders, great employees are made, not really found or anything. It's really a process.
Yeah, if
And
they're found, somebody made them.
yeah, and practices that are really good at inspiring this, just like you're talking about, crank out a lot of good people. And then you have the practice, like you said, that we talked to and we interviewed the doctor, and he says, I got nobody.
It's a little of the chicken and the egg syndrome, because the doctor thinks, I don't have anybody. So why should I set exciting goals? Why should I be trying to make this practice something great if all I've got is these mediocre people? If you knew that they could develop, you might set some goals, some growth and profitability goals that before you hadn't thought possible. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is one you talk about, Doctor, undermining leadership. Can you comment on that, Wes?
Yeah, this is probably one thing that I see a lot, and I would put at the top of the list as something that I wouldn't say just undermining leaders, undermining everybody in the practice. Something happens and somebody makes a decision, and then the doctor comes in and just cuts it out and says, nope, we're doing it this way. And it's just constant, where they're always the decision maker. And pretty soon, anybody that was trying to make decisions, trying to fix things or run things better, all of a sudden they just stop even trying. This is a big one. And especially in leadership, this is how you can just basically create a toothless tiger in leadership. Undermine them when they have disciplined a team member or talked to somebody or changed a system, that you come in and just behind them and just say, nope, we're not doing it like that. She doesn't know what she's talking about. We're doing it this way. You can just forget about developing anybody.
Motivation, morale, it's all gone.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff's out the window, and you will just have a bunch of pawns. and you'll be the king, but you won't have
You got
development.
dentistry to deliver, so that there you go.
Yeah. So you got to be careful on that one, that you know how to interface with your team. And when you do want to make a change, how to do it without undermining uh, anybody, especially that is in leadership.
Right. Getting them aside separately, being diplomatic, acknowledging them and their opinion. Okay, let's go on to the last one. It's what I call having people's back. This is one of the traits in our greatest offices. When I say great, I mean they have a team like no other. The leaders have their back. Let me explain. It's not that they team up, the leaders team up with the staff against the doctor. It's that the leaders protect the staff from unfairness. If a doctor comes in and some staff person is very dominant, tries to take credit for something that isn't her doing, the leader will straighten this out. In other words, the staff always know that the doctor will get the straight story given a few minutes, to work through it. That otherwise people go home very unsettled. Wow, he blamed me. He held me responsible for what wasn't my fault. It was clearly his daughter who's working here or whatever. Yeah, so having their back so they know that to the degree that is humanly possible, fairness reigns. You will be fair. In this office, you'll be treated fair. And people will take a lot of trauma, a lot of, you can demand things of them as long as you treat them fair. If everybody gets demanded, if everybody is held to the same standard.
Points of leadership, when you look at anybody that has a team underneath them that are willing to go to great lengths for them, this is in essence where it comes from.
This is the term that always comes
right,
up.
The leader and everybody underneath them feels like that leader's got my back. I don't have to really worry. And if I'm struggling, I'll have every opportunity to correct myself. And if I'm really struggling and I've got to leave the team or whatever, it'll be very apparent, but I'll have gotten every effort.
Yeah, because you see people around you, you look at them and they're sneaky, underhanded. They're doing things where, somebody's going to get hurt this way. They're going to hurt somebody's job prospects, but your leader will straighten that out, or your doctor, whoever.
Yeah, you just don't have to watch over your back.
Okay, these are the things I would want to have corrected in my office going forward if I wanted to keep the staff I've got and attract good people and know they're going to stay.
I would comment that this is not going to be fixed over the next year or so. This environment that we're in, right? We're talking, this is going to be a couple years probably where we're going to be on the wrong side of the demand curve in terms of employees, where they get to kind of pick a little bit. And so we have to create an environment that when we do find people, and the people we do have stick or tend to stick, and the ones we want to stick absolutely stay. We can't be losing people. And this is the list, Greg. Yeah.
I go one step further. And that is, if you did by some chance see yourself in this, or maybe your spouse or a leader pointed out that we're guilty of this, okay? That you take it to heart and maybe call the people that are affected aside and say, hey, I haven't been doing this right. I'm going to change. I'm going to fix this, and then fix it,
Right.
That's your best chance of keeping the people you got. Wes, that's what I had on this topic. I hope it's helpful.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for listening.